because the Lord asked Solomon, ask of me, what shall I give you? And he could have asked for triumph over his enemies, riches, a harem full of women. He could have asked for anything. For a long kingdom. But that's what he asked for. He says, hey, I'm a child. I don't know how to go in and go out. I don't really know what your people need. They're such a great people they can't even number them. I don't pretend to know what they need. But you know. So give me your understanding and an understanding heart that I might rightly be able to discern judgment. That's what he actually asked for. To discern judgment. To be able to perceive right judgment for the sake of God's people. And the Lord says, because you have asked for yourself understanding to discern judgment, I have done according to your words. But I'm going to do even more. I'm going to give you wealth. I'm going to give you riches. And I'm going to give you wisdom beyond anybody before or after you. And as long as you follow me and as long as you basically obey my words, there will not fail to sit. Your seed will sit upon the throne of Israel. That was God's promise. And you know what? The promise, he says in Acts to the jailer, who brings him out, takes him home, feeds him, cleans him up.
Pixel 8 Pro disconnected. Ready to pair.
The promise to the jailer is this promise is to you and your family. And the promises of God to you, if you're faithful and you impart it to your children, the promise is to them too. Not that they'll get it without them having a relationship, but God will be faithful to your children as he is to you. It's still up to them to follow, but he'll be faithful.
I've got something to say. I don't know if you want me to come up there. Just say it right here.
Say it there.
I got a revelation that really actually goes along with this. And I've been telling it to Toby. This is really deep, and I think I'm going to stand up so you can hear me. This just came to me why people don't see. Jesus said, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I would have gathered you as a hen gathers its chicks, but you wouldn't receive the one sent to you. You smote the shepherd, you scattered the sheep. You don't receive, and until you do one thing." And I thought, this is really deep, because every woman I know who's repented for their hearts being bands and snares and traps that people have to escape from because they're liars, every woman I know that told themselves the truth and asked God to forgive them for oppressing the little ones, sees clearly. Because I was talking to some girls, some of the kids in the ministry, and I said, you cook your own goose. Jesus said this, is you've done it to the least, so you've done it to me, and so you've done it to Jesus and you. So to oppress people and speak words of oppression to people murders your very own soul. You lie to somebody, you've just murdered your own soul. You play down all those things that people do, pride, looking down on each other. It's actually the death and the murder of our own good spirit. It's Satan himself taking away your good spirit as you do it unto somebody else. You're doing it to Jesus' spirit in you. That's why women, I know women, Carmi's the first one to just straight up said it. It wasn't even her kids. Linda broke down crying in my arms. I've known women that have really faced what they've done to the least, and I thought about this. When I got filled with the Spirit, and when I got born again, really when I went to the...
Really?
When I went to I think I got filled with the Spirit, so I had this flashback of being pregnant with Rebecca, and I watched these two kids, maybe only for a couple months too. But I was so overcome by the darkness, and I was so selfish. I was lost in so much misery. I didn't take, one of them was only 9 months old, and I think the other one was a year and a half. But I don't know why that came to me, because I knew I just was so overcome. It was hard for me to even give myself to these kids. And it was the first thing I repented of. And then I thought, you know, I am not going to throw my kids in the trash and sink the boat and give my kids away. And I pulled over in the car one day. I think a couple of them were arguing. And I said, God, I don't know if I can do this. I can't do this. You know, I was alone. And the Spirit said, who's going to love your kids besides their own mother? So stop being a give-up girl. And stop thinking it's too hard. They need you to love them. And you know, when I started deciding I was going to do what's right with those little people and not make them serve my happiness and not abuse them and not treat them after my own pleasure, I had a Bible school all the time. Let's spy Jesus. It was one Bible study after the next. And when I'm holding Dan screaming his head off with fear and Rebecca hardly being able to breathe because I was fearful, I looked at the woman in the mirror and I said, you better have some faith. Suck it up. This fear thing is the first on the list. It's going to be cast into hell, so stop tormenting your children.
Let me jump in here. When I married Cece, she was still a lot of gloom and doom girl. She figured this relationship would last a week. And surely something would happen.
I was going to get struck by lightning from marrying you.
But I'll tell you who she married. I was raised by a command bomber pilot. My mother, not my dad. And both those women, Pat Son, Betty Clark, when you're a command pilot, you don't abdicate the throne. You don't decide, well, I don't know if I can do this, so you jump out of the seat and bail out and leave your crew in the airplane. You can't bail out.
That's it.
You're the last one to leave. Everybody bails out, but you take care of that airplane. So she married somebody that was not a give-up guy. I wasn't abdicating. And there were times when she was kind of hoping I'd leave because I was the object of conviction. It'd be good if I left. I was not abdicating. I was not the guy leaving the bedroom. I was not the guy leaving my office. I was not bailing out. I was there, come crash or land, I was there. And you know what it did? It put that spirit in her that she's not going to ever bail out again. She's hanging with the airplane.
So I had a dream. I had a dream last night, early this morning, right before I woke up, and I was wondering what it meant until you just started talking about escaping the plane, bailing out of the plane. Right before I woke up, it's a short dream. The setting was the Ten Commandments when they're trying to escape across the Red Sea. When they're up against the sea and they're not sure what to do because it hasn't opened yet. That was the setting. You were in Moses' spot, and just the 5-second blip was, you said, don't seek to escape through many devices, but trust in the Lord for your salvation. And the scripture that I got was, it's super simple. It's Proverbs 19:21, and it says, in a man's heart there's many devices, but the counsel of the Lord, that'll stand.
Wow.
So that both speaks to what your prayer and what you're talking about. Don't seek to escape by devising your own way. The Lord has a plan. And what you said about being a child, when I woke up with that, and I was just looking some things up, that's what I just started writing down. What came to me was, you're a child in your father's house. So don't start trying to build a house inside the house. It's his house. Just be thankful for the corner or the door or wherever he's put you in the house.
Yeah,
And build up that
your
part of
bunk
the-
bed.
Yeah, yeah. He has you building his house. Just be thankful with that and do it.
Wow. Holy Ghost meeting. We're all tempted and pressured to give up or give in or to compromise. But well, got to make a living. Well, got to pay the bills. Hey, to hell with the bills. You know how many bills growing up into this ministry didn't get paid? Well, I never went to jail. I had a few people upset with me, but you know what? They got over it. You know why? Because God prospered them. You know why? Because they helped me. I didn't take advantage of anybody, but I was honest. And I didn't worry about stuff like that. Why? Why didn't I worry about it? Jesus is Lord. And I didn't presume on him either. A lot of people, oh yeah, you presumed on the Lord. You presumed on people. You took offerings. They paid for your vision. No, not so. You all have paid for the vision that God gave me. But guess what? He gave it to you too. So you're paying for your own vision. You're just as guilty as I am. And the miraculous thing about it is, he honored it. Well, how do you know you're in the right group? Because he's supporting me. And he's giving me vision. And he's strengthening my walk. And he's given me the revelation of his person and his kingdom. And you know what? I love more. I'm able to suffer better. I have more joy. I have no need of really anything. And the future, my future, is right today. Today is my future. Tomorrow is his future for me. I don't live for tomorrow. I live for today. And I don't live because of yesterday. Yesterday gives me wisdom, regardless of how badly I screwed it up. It's still my wisdom. Yesterday is today's wisdom. Tomorrow will be yesterday's vision and wisdom. And he is sufficient for all these things. I mean, if all of us just spent some time thinking about where we are today, that's why when we were singing, he will do great things, he has done great things, I can't hardly sing it. I'm too moved because it's so real. It's so true. He has done great things. He is doing great things. He will do great things.
I want to share Rebecca's testimony since she's not here. Can I share it for her?
Depends on how long.
It's not very long. So I was talking to her on the phone this morning, and we were talking about that. There's a scripture in Hebrews that says, "My soul takes no pleasure in those that withdraw unto death." And so I was talking to her about, it's not a matter of being perfect, it's a matter of not withdrawing unto death. That's what being perfect is. It's not that we blow it, it's that we don't withdraw unto death. So it's going to be her birthday, and I said, you know, Rebecca, I think I really need to apologize to you because I've given time to scorners who delighted in scorning, that had no intention to care about doing God's will, and you've been stolen from a lot. And we all have we all have suffering in life. you've suffered, Dan suffered at the hands of a lot of people whose hearts weren't right and they didn't care what spirit they anointed people with. And I said, you know, we all have a different kind of cup of suffering. But I have to say about you and Dan, you guys have suffered well. You've been able to suffer at the hand of other people's selfishness and demonic activity, and you've hung in there. And she wanted this really expensive thing, and she said, I'm just saving money for it because it's her birthday in a couple days. And she told me about it, and she told me how much it was, and it was like $800, $700, $800. And so I texted Jeremy, and I asked him to pay for half of it. And I was telling her this, and I said to her, you know, Rebecca, when Dad heard about that, he wanted to pay for it. And he loves you so much, and he's so thankful. And she burst out crying. Because she's so thankful that she has a father that can help her keep a good spirit. And that her brother cares about keeping a good spirit, and that he's got sons that now are fighting to keep a good spirit.
I want to say something to you younger guys. I was thinking about this just before I came in here. Hopefully you can benefit from this. I've been an amateur fighter, ranked among the top 10 heavyweights in the nation. I've been a professional boxer, signed the richest boxing contract in the state of California. I've been an actor, had opportunities in Hollywood, signed to do Dirty Harry with Clint Eastwood. Tried out for the 49ers and the Raiders. Signed Evel Knievel's professional contract for $2 million. Your dad wanted to be a millionaire? I was a millionaire, on paper. I was thinking of my life, so think about all those different lifetimes I could have had. And I thought about each one of them. And I thought, I came to tears thinking about the great life that I've had by giving all that stuff up and just serving Jesus. I know that I don't know what that means to you, younger guys, because you're young, your whole life's ahead of you. You got maybe some dreams and hopes for various things. But I'm here to tell you, you will never find anything more fulfilling, anything that'll make you happier,
That's right.
anything in this whole world that can compare to just walking beside Jesus Christ through this life. I am so thankful.
That's right.
Because all that we have today, you know, you don't belong to me, you belong to Jesus. But he has gathered all of us to be able to walk together. All of this has come, I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for one person. I didn't ask for this house. I mean, yeah, when we looked at it and we were looking for a place, I asked him, but never did I think I would ever have this. But you know, it's uncomparable.
It is.
And this is just almost nothing compared to what he has in store
Yes.
for us in the next world.
That's right. That's right.
And let me tell you, nobody's going to be sitting around playing harp. They can't even, in all their wisdom and all the scientific knowledge that's out there, they still don't know how many universes there are in space. There is no end to the space. Because God said, well, that's simple. I told you, I have no beginning and I have no end. And by the way, don't try to figure that out. Our spirit has no end. So we're not going to figure it out. But I think there's a lot more in eternity for us than sitting on our butt playing a harp. Well, can you tell me what it is? No. Can you give me a hint? No. Can you imagine it? No. How come? Well, I'll try. Go ahead. It says it's neither in the heart of man or is an imagination. What is your imagination? What's another word for imagination? Vision. When you imagine something, you're envisioning something. Do you see that? So, and where does vision come from? Comes from God? Comes from the devil. Man will try to give you a vision. But that's, how do you know what's from man? Well, man's vision is the toughest to imagine.
And the hardest to work out.
Because it comes from man. The devil's vision is easy because he puts it in a in a form and in a way that's very similar to God's vision. You know, but and it all has to do with this life. You know, whether it's visions of demons or powers or principalities or visions of grandeur, houses, lands, wealth, riches, all of that is easy for us to get. Having a vision for, you know, a motorcycle that can ski on water, you know, God knows where that came from. But you know, Robbie Madison and Red Bull developed it. My design. And he rode across the ocean on it. A motorcycle with water skis and tires with flapper treads that propelled him across the water 60 miles an hour. Totally my design. What, 30 years, 40 years later? So I don't know. It's probably man's vision. Didn't work for me. Anyway, you've just got to be patient. And I'll tell you how you fall into it. Now this is really, this is the golden key that opens the vault to the miracles of God. You fall into the will of God by one thing, and it's not faith. What do you think it is? It's a verb.
Praise. Doing.
I said it wasn't faith.
Doing. I said praise.
Huh?
I said praise. Surrender.
Praise?
That's what I said.
No.
Ask.
Huh?
You ask.
No.
Obedience.
No. You fall into the total will of God by doing one thing. Now it'll take faith to do it, but faith is not the main thing. It's an act.
Following.
What?
Following.
Yes and no. No. Because you can follow and not do this. Serving. See how we don't get that? It's
Evidently
too
not.
damn simple. It's too simple.
Yeah.
I grew up serving because I grew up in a house of authority that didn't need me to lead. The house that I grew up in, they were not asking for my opinion, nor were they receiving it when I gave it. I only gave my opinion when? When I was asked. And then they wouldn't receive it. I learned every single thing. I learned how to fly, fight, hunt, everything you can imagine. I learned by serving. Narrow is the gate. Narrow is the path to service. Few there be that will walk on that path. Because everybody wants to lead, even though you can't even lead yourself to the bathroom. Serving. And you never ever graduate. Are you willing to be in the same class until you die?
Yes.
Because that's the class. To serve. No servant of a pure heart. See, you can serve and not be a servant.
That's right.
Have you ever known any arrogant table waiters? Have you ever known any arrogant bankers? Loan officers? Car salesmen? Real estate people? It seems like the more money you make selling, the more arrogant you become. When it should be just the opposite. In the kingdom it is. That's why I said you could have faith and you could be a follower, but not a server. A servant is one in heart, not in deed. If you think you're going, we have people that serve. Well, let me ask, don't raise your hands. Have you ever served selfishly? Served to be seen? Been the first on the job, the last on the job, the first to raise your hand so you could be seen and acknowledged and recognized. It's a hard position. And you know, some people, honestly, not some, I would say most people, honestly, have to work at it. They have to work at serving. You know, Cece was tested. Oh, honey, I don't like my eggs runny. Oh, honey, my eggs are overdone. Got a standing joke around this house. Don't talk to Pat when she's cooking my steak. The last steak you cooked me was like jerky. In front of everybody. Her heart's right. I mean, she was cooking me a steak because she wanted to, but she can't do two things at once. Especially when Cece's talking to her. Forget it. School's out. my steak goes to, it becomes a burnt offering. I've even come in the kitchen a few times and said, honey, don't talk to her, she's going to cook my steak. Most people have to work at being servants. The golden key to walking with Jesus is to serve. That's the golden key. If you can continue to be a servant, He'll have you everywhere He goes. He'll have you go where He goes. Knievel loved having me close to him. Because you know what? I served him. I was the only guy working for him. Well, no, Ray Gunn was his friend, his good friend. Ray Gunn was so much of a friend, when Knievel started mistreating him, he left. And I did too. But he kept me because I truly served him. That's the key. You can't keep your life and love your life and be a servant. You have to love somebody else.
I have a story.
And some people are hard to love. Right?
Yeah.
You may say some people are hard to serve. Well, only if you're serving them.
Yeah.
But really, when you're serving Jesus, and you'll serve whoever He turns you toward. And if they're unthankful and unholy, you can serve them with a good heart, and then you can tell them, by the way, you're unthankful and you're unholy. Enjoy your meal. He didn't say you didn't, you just had to eat it. If you're a good church two-stepper, then you'll eat it. You won't say anything. But if you're a true servant, you'll say something. Golden key is serving. Being a servant. That's what Solomon was saying. Oh Lord, I'm but a little child. You may not realize this, but children in the kingdom served. When they weren't playing and just being raised, they were serving. They grew up in the palace learning how to serve. Putting the needs of others before their own. Gee, that sounds like Christianity. Right? Any comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. So it so totally makes sense now, which it did before anyway, but it makes more sense. When you lived on C and a Half Road, we had some kind of a cleaning party or something. And I was up cleaning the windows in your office up there. And you were in your office and you said to me, do you think this could ever become a lifestyle for you? And I had no idea what you were talking about. I mean, I didn't really get you were talking about me washing the windows. But I said, you could talk to me through the window. And I said, I don't know what. And you said, being a servant. You think it could ever become a lifestyle for you? Then when we moved in, you guys moved into the Pine Cove house when we came back from Hawaii. I was slated to move in there with you guys. But we all sat down, we had a meeting, and Jean said to me, you can't move in, Deb. I don't want you to take this as rejection, but you can't move in because I can't trust you to take out the trash. That's what he said to me.
Wonderful.
And you know what? That's made sense to me now, but Cece had said a while back, she goes, I don't know why he said that to you. But it makes sense now. I couldn't be trusted to take out the trash because life was all about me. It wasn't about serving the Lord.
Yeah.
And it didn't become about serving the Lord and others until I went back to Colorado and really got saved.
So do you think Potiphar was a righteous man?
No.
You know, one of the chief commands in Pharaoh's kingdom? You think that's why the Lord had Joseph as a slave serving Potiphar's house? Because he was a righteous man? No. No, the guy was wicked. You think the head jailer that kept the prison was a righteous man? No. But Joseph had to serve him. Joseph, by the way, served his 11 brothers. But he had the heart of his father above the 11. Why? Because his brothers weren't servants. His brothers were owners and possessors. Who of Jesus's 12 was the servant?
John.
John. No, Peter wasn't the servant. Peter was more of a arrogant warrior type. John was a servant. And he was also the youngest. And he also outlived everybody. Tradition says, history says, they tried to kill him a couple of times, martyr him. They threw him in boiling oil. Didn't affect him. So they exiled him. That's what you do. When you don't know what to do with somebody, you exile them. I was exiled from Fort Lauderdale. Who went to heaven? John. Who wrote the Revelation? John. Who had the golden key? John. Jesus didn't reject the others, but John had the key. He was the servant.
So the last couple of weeks I've been taking it a little easier now that I don't have to go into work anymore. And the last few days the Lord's been talking to me about rest versus slothfulness. And I asked the Lord to open my eyes about, how does He see rest? I can't tell you how many people, when they learned I was retiring, questioned whether I was going to play golf more or what I was going to do with all my time. And so I've been looking for vision on what I should do with my time. And so I asked the Lord to open my eyes about how He wanted to take the time I used to rest, that it would glorify Him. And He gave me a verse yesterday. Take my yoke upon you, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light, and I will give you rest.
Have you defined Jesus' yoke?
It's serving.
That's it.
Whoa.
You got it.
There you go.
That's good. The yoke of service. And there are several Johns in this ministry. I don't want to tell you who you are
Including John.
then you'll
Yeah.
you'll probably think more highly of yourself than you should. But there are several Johns. I'm actually amazed at the servants God has placed in this ministry. Servants and servantesses, both. It's a great thing.
When Steve was talking about take my yoke upon you, what came to me was, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly. And what I thought of, because we don't learn, we're instructed.
Yes, good.
And the only way we can be, like, all of us in service, to whatever degree, have been instructed by someone who has already served in that position before us.
Yeah.
And I'm just thankful to be a part of that.
Think about some of the titles in this society's work field. Social services, which should be redefined as social Nazism.
Yeah.
But originally it was service. Armed services, military service, which has a right connotation. And when you go to boot camp, that's what's instilled in you, is to learn how to serve. Shut up, shave, other stuff, and serve. And it's all good stuff. But it is. It's the golden key. But it does take faith. It takes faith not to want to exalt yourself. It takes faith. And that was my deal. I was on a quest to make something of myself. And out of all that I did, and who my father was, all of that, I became more well known doing nothing for myself. It's crazy. Do you think for 1 minute, you might have thought this way, but do you think for one moment that I thought, oh, I'll jump for Jesus and I'll be the only guy doing it and I'll become famous? I thought, yeah, I'm the only guy doing this because nobody will come. Nobody even does this. The church won't do it. The church will reject me. But this is what I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to do it. And then I got accused later of riding Knievel's coattail. Because Evel Knievel this, Evel Knievel that. I just stood up and said, well, yeah, sure. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Evel Knievel.
Yeah.
I said, the Lord had me serve him and put me in training to do this because he wanted to use it for good. I didn't back away from it. All of us, anything that we are, we are because of somebody else. John the Baptist put it this way: no man can receive anything except it be given from above. Jeremy owes his livelihood to his dad. Period. I owe my livelihood to my mom and Betty. And partly my dad. His fame got me through a lot of stupid things. You know, I got a new 650 Triumph, and I'm wheeling up a main artery in San Francisco at 12 o'clock at night. I'm wheeling at 65 miles an hour up a main highway. My buddy, his name was Goody Goody. He looked like Danny DeVito. He was in a beat up station wagon. I'm wheeling, he's right beside me, and we're talking, going down the highway. 65 miles an hour. And I'm yelling at him, and we're laughing, and I was headed home the long way, but I was going home. Past the cop. Going the other way. Well, he makes a U-turn, lights on, so I pull over. He pulls up, you know, let me see your license. What do you think you're doing? Who's that? I said, oh, he's just a friend of mine. I said, he wasn't doing anything. Well, he was talking to you, and you know, you were riding recklessly, whatever. I said, no, I just using one wheel. He didn't think it was funny. And he had a German Shepherd attack dog in the car. Well, I like dogs. And so he's talking to me and getting my information, gave my license. And he had called for help. He figured he was going to have a problem with me because of my size and what we were doing. And so while he's writing up the ticket, the sergeant, the commander, watch commander of that area pulls up. Meanwhile, I walk over to the car. He says, and I start petting his dog. He says, don't do that. He'll tear you apart. And the dog's, you know, just happy to. That made him mad. So, get over here. So I walk over there. The watch captain says, what's going on here? He says, oh, this guy, and he says, Sully. He says, were you on your way home, boy? And he's an Irishman, you know. Were you on your way home now? I said, well, yes, sir. He saw me because I performed wheelies for the mayor at the Cow Palace. And so, you know, the police were there. It was a big deal, you know, at the Cow Palace. So he says, okay. He says, officer, he says, Sully was just on his way home, demonstrating his new motorcycle. He's fine, let him go. Thank you, Prescott. And the last great thing was my dad, you know, had died, gone on. And Joe and I broke into the house and got a trunk, like a Siemens trunk, packed it up full of pictures and stuff of mine that was in the house. We go to the airport, took 2 of us to carry this thing in. I mean, it was a black metal Siemens trunk. And haul it in, put it on a scale, you know. The guy looks at it and he goes, you know, you can't, you know, this can't go on the plane with you. And I went to get something. Well, Joe starts talking to this guy. He says, you know who that is? And the guy says, well, who? He you know Prescott Sullivan? Oh yeah, yeah, we all know who Prescott. Well, that's his son. It is? He says, yeah, he's a missionary and he's back from, you know, whatever. I don't know, from heaven. I don't know what you're So the guy says, oh, well, he says, we can take care of this. So he tagged it, put it down the belt, it went for nothing. They didn't pay for it. Had to go cargo, but it went with us.
Grace to grace.
There were two of them. There were two trunks.
Okay.
Double the
They weighed
blessing.
at least 60 pounds apiece.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, my goodness.
Well, you told me, you said, my dad's name is good as gold in this town.
Yeah,
And I thought, well, let's find out.
And that's the advantage, you know, what came to me about the Holy Spirit is grace. We should just call when you hear the voice of the Spirit and you obey it, you lose grace in your life. And when you spirit people with the wrong spirit of your mouth, you push away grace. And that's why, I mean, I could tell 1,000 stories of grace, and that's just one of them. Because we shouldn't be living from crap happening to crap happening. We should be living from grace to grace.
your father
And you don't care what you say to your brother, though?
Your father is everything in your life. Your heavenly Father. I was given an example through Prescott. Everywhere I went in San Francisco, I never had a problem. I hardly had to buy a drink because of Prescott. I was in Mooney's Irish Pub. I just feel to say this, just share this little story. And with two of my Navy buddies. And we close the place down. We're drinking black Irish beer. We close the place down. It's 2 o'clock. The bartender says, Sully, gotta go. Gotta close it down. You know, so we walk outside. He shuts the door. And a pickup truck with a cloth cover over the back like a covered wagon is going real slow down this one-way street. And the guys in front flip me off and, you know, F me out. So I look at him and I go, well, you too. Well, then the truck stops, they back up, 2 guys get out of the front, 3 guys bail out of the back. And they line up in front of the truck. So I got my 2 buddies with me. Not one of us is under 6'1". But they're kind of in the bag, you know. They're kind of staggering around and looking at what's going on. And so these guys line up, and the smallest one was a Mexican. Now the thing with Mexicans is they always carry something. Either a knife, a gun, a tire iron, a chain. They always have a friend. And so I'm looking at these guys. This is out of a movie, no kidding. They line up side by side in front of their truck. And so they start, you know, mouthing me. Well, I don't, you know, trash talk. So I'm not saying nothing. So I walk up to them. I got a smile on my face. Now we're all dressed pretty good because we're out on the town. I'm not in my jeans, cowboy boots as usual. I'm in slacks, nice shirt, you know. And I walk up to the middle, the biggest guy. I put my hands up, you know, like universal sign of surrender, right? But I wasn't going to surrender. And so I walk up, put my hands up. I said, well, you guys, you know, looks like there's more of you than us. And I nailed the biggest guy. Knocked him out. And so everybody jumps into action. So I'm dealing with these guys, one guy at a time. My 2 buddies are standing in front of the bar just watching. Really, they're not getting involved at all. So I'm knocking one guy out after the other. Well, the little guy comes up finally swinging this chain around, and I duck the chain. My big buddy, Irish guy, Gatlin, Billy Gatlin, looks Irish too, the whole Irish thing, stands up behind me. He gets hit in the head with a chain. Cuts his ear in half. Bleeds all over his shirt. And so then I knocked this guy out. So meanwhile, inside the bar, the bartender calls the cops. So while all this is going on, cops come in, both sides, sirens, everything. The cops jump out. They got these guys laying all over the place. I'm standing there, and Billy's holding his ear, and the captain walks up. He says, "Sully," he says, "You have a little problem here." I said, "Well, not much." He says, "Yeah, I can see that." And he said, "These guys jumped you, huh?" I mean, didn't even ask me. Today, I would have got thrown in jail because they were laying on the ground. I was standing. Back then, they went to jail. He said, "Well, have a good night, Sully." And all because of my dad. I mean, you know, man, when your Father is known in heaven, God Almighty is your Father, and you're walking uprightly, there's nothing He won't do for you. He takes care of His servants. The arrogant, the self-willed, the prideful, they got a rough road ahead of them. The servant, straight and narrow. That's one good thing about the straight and narrow. It gets you where you want to go faster.
Can I say something?
Sorry about all the stories.
So one of the things I told the girls, I said, you know, real success as a parent is when you can leave your children and you know that they're going to be honorable with each other, that they're going to do what's right. Because those that honor God that way, Him will the Father honor. It's like Jesus said, I go away and I'm going to leave a comforter.
Oh,
So you can help each other, not tear each other down, right? Smack each other around with words.
there's one thing I got to say. So they're rounding these guys up, and they got them all standing up against the wall. We're getting ready to leave. I got to take Billy to the hospital, get his ears sewn. And as we're walking in the car, the lead guy of the truck says, "Hey, Sully." He knew who I was.
Wow.
He said, "You really handled us good tonight." He said, "I knew it was you. I figured we were going to have a problem." He said, "I saw you on TV win the heavyweight championship of the city." And he said, I kind of thought we were kind of in for it.
Wow.
And so this guy ends up being the son of a woman that was in the Army Air Corps with my mom. What are the chances? And this got back to my mom. The story got back to my mom. For whatever reason, you know.
Did she talk to you about it?
Yeah.
What'd she say?
Well, just, I don't know, but I mean, she knew about it.
So, talking about being a servant, we go back to 37, 38 years ago with good stewards and with handmaidens. And bringing us in here, I had been a mom and raised children. at 40 years old, but being able to go out into the community, and it was the vision the Lord gave you for the good stewards
Yeah.
and for the handmaidens. We didn't charge by the hour. It wasn't
Yeah.
anything. It was whatever they could do. And we prayed for people. I mean, it was just such a powerful thing. And
It was.
that's the foundation of this ministry, starting way back the old path.
Table
Yes.
waiters.
Yeah,
That's how Rick started.
yeah,
Just serving.
yes,
Borrowed rake and
yeah,
trash can.
yes.
What's so cool about that is it's not just,
Speak up.
like now. the
Speak up.
handmaidens going in and cleaning for people. I mean, Shannon, myself, we, even this week, we were able to, Kay and I, give a gal that we have at different times in her life, and she says, every time I'm going through something, hard, you guys are always there, and you are encouraging me, and she's, and just giving testimony and being able to pray for people, and serving them in that way.
Yeah.
That's the life.
You know what I love about the Catholics? I really do. The orders of nuns, which are many, and monks, which are many, and brothers and friars, priests, they're servants. All of those orders, the Franciscans, St. Francis, one man, started a whole movement of serving the community with the testimony of Jesus. And lived off whatever people gave. No requirement. That's what I love about that order, is they're truly servants. I know not all the individuals have a servant's heart, but all the orders were started by a woman or a man who had a heart to serve. The Salesian mission, the Catholic missionary mission that we give to every month, started with one man, Brother Salesian. And he started taking care of orphans, feeding orphans, a few at a time. It's now the largest Catholic or Christian missionary orphanage. They've got, I forget, 140 some schools. They've got hospitals. They've got orphanages that go from kindergarten through high school, all around the world, for nothing. That's how that has grown. Because he was a servant. He looked to serve. Father Damien and Molokai looked to serve. Died of the disease, but died serving. Amazing people, servants. And if we don't grow one person, if we don't grow in numbers, one person from now till Jesus comes, as long as those of us that are here have the heart of a servant, we'll be successful. And we'll leave a mark. And we'll be a witness.
In Grand Junction, there was a bunch of people that we were mowing their lawns.
Can you guys hear him?
And one of the guys, one of the men his name was Art Moss. And we mowed his lawn and one of the neighbors' lawns. And we mowed their lawn. And one day he came to me and he said, my best friend's dying. He says, I want you to go, would you please go in to them in the hospital. He says, I know you know the Lord, and please make sure that he gets right with the Lord. And I went into the hospital and led him through the prayer.
Wow.
And just, we're lawnmowers.
Yeah.
People mow the lawn. His neighbor gave us his truck. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Great.
Well, I've just been thinking a lot about, I mean, I've kind of fallen away from having a servant's heart recently. And not that I've just completely gone the wrong way, but it's just I haven't been as faithful as I should. And after the dinner on, or I guess the lunch on Sunday with Jerry, I kind of stayed up later, did some cleaning up, and had a kind of a good time doing it. But afterwards, I'm getting ready for bed, and I'm just doing kind of what you talk about. I'm looking at the mirror, seeing who's looking back at me. And, you know, when I think of servants, I think of Stephen.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about the scripture. He says, you know, who can we get to serve tables? He says, we'll find, you know, some men of a good report and filled with the Holy Spirit. But for the first time, I started thinking of that in reverse. I said, well, do you have a good heart? Or do you have a good report? I think so. Are you filled with the Spirit? Yes. Okay, so go serve tables. This is what
good.
qualifies you to go serve tables.
Yeah.
So just go do it.
And in God's kingdom, this will go crosswise. In God's kingdom, if you're not filled with the Spirit and you don't have a good heart, you're not qualified to serve. Go do something else.
Yeah, you can't see what needs done anyway.
He's not qualifying you to serve. A huge part of the pastoral ministry today in contemporary church would be kicked out if the first century apostles came in to see who was serving and who was taking authority over God's people. They'd be removed. Amen. Happy thought.
I just want to share real quick, because, you know, when you're talking about serving, and, you know, I'm thinking of Linda, and if it wasn't for Linda and Cece initially in my life, you know, there's a spirit. I've been talking to some girls, and I said, who was the Proverbs 31 woman? If you don't have the spirit of a woman, go, there's a spirit you need imparted. And what was the Proverbs 31 woman? I said, she was a worker, but better, she was the servant of all. I said, she looked well to the ways of her household. I didn't have that spirit. I didn't have it when I moved in with Cece. You know, and it was all about me, and I'd cry. Like when we moved up to Billings, where's my room? When we moved up, where's my room? And I was distraught, where's my room? And Cece's looking to set the whole house for children.
Look at it this way. You only have 40 or 50 years to serve. You only have. That's it. You're done after that. There's nothing after that.
You know, and when I would read, it was actually Joe who gave me Proverbs 31, because he saw and lived with women and knew women who didn't have good spirits, and he had confronted my life at that point. Here's this, read this. This is what you need, and this is what you need to submit to receive that spirit.
Did you ever see any of these old movies where, and usually there's a gangster that has a heart for the down and outers, but there's several of these old movies where the gangster's walking out of this building late at night, and the little old lady is down on her knees scrubbing the floor.
Oh, yeah, always.
And she looks up, you know, she's not used to looking up because She just sees people's feet. And he stops in front of her, and she looks up like maybe she's done something wrong, or yes, what can I? And they usually says something like, "So, Mama, how long you been here? How old are you? Oh, I'm so and so, and so you're still scrubbing floors. Well, I'm trying to help my daughter, my grandchild, get educated, whatever." And he'll reach down and give her like $200-300, which back then is a year's wage, And but those movies, it's interesting they put that in there.
Yes.
They could have left that out,
Yeah.
but they're showing service. They're showing the heart of the exalted and the arrogant and the taker and the user and the servant and the big gap between them. But there's something in the heart of the user that feels compelled to help the servant. Little moral of that story: servants will always be provided for.
Yeah.
God will see to it. You'll never have to be concerned. That's why Jesus says, hey, don't take any thought for tomorrow. Say, what will we eat? Where will we go? What will we wear? Where will we stay? Your Father, what? Feeds the birds. They don't sow, they don't reap, they don't toil, but He feeds them. Are not you worth much more than a sparrow? All the promises of God are to the servants, not to the go-getters.
All night long I've been thinking about that movie clip that Cece sent a couple weeks ago, the Always clip.
Oh yeah.
And
Yep.
it's so profound, because Jerry and I were out in South Dakota camping when we listened to that, and I was just kind of in our little kitchen cooking or doing dishes or something, and we're listening to it. And when you go and do stuff like that, it's just a slower pace. You're not just constant busy doing stuff at a crazy pace. So I'm really listening to it, and the clip of the movie was that scene where he had died in the plane crash, and he's going before Hap, who's basically kind of showing him some pictures of his life, and he's bragging it up like, yeah, I did that, and I did this, and I did that, and I was great, and she's just real gentle in her correction. Was like, you had help, you had other people that helped you do what you were doing, and she just made this statement in it that just resonated. She just said, you had your life.
Yep.
You lived your life. And I was thinking, okay, it's a movie clip, it's the guy's dead, we're alive. But I heard it like, you've lived your life. You lived the life that you gave yourself to, you wanted to do, you tried it.
Yep.
You might have succeeded in some things, and you failed in many. And when she kind of continued on, and she said, you're going to basically be now being used to try to further somebody else and help their cause, and that's going to be your vision in this spirit realm that you're now in. And because she said, because everything that you do now for self is a waste of spirit.
Yes. That's the key.
I mean, it's such a great, and obviously Hollywood, somebody in Hollywood understands something spiritually that they're trying to message.
Yep.
And if you're sensitive enough to just kind of listen to those movies.
Well, that movie was written in the 40s.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where that came from.
Yeah.
It's an old version. Plus, I think that what you talked about was that we're receivers and imparters. I mean, I can see the depth of revelation since that meeting, because that's what we're gonna be responsible for. Were we willing to fellowship devils and impart that to people? I mean, when do you give that up? Because we're gonna be accountable for every word we speak is operating on somebody's soul. That's what Jesus said. I don't wanna afford not to believe that my words are operating on people, and I'm gonna give an account. So it's important what receiver we're tapped into and how we're operating on other people's souls.
Okay, so get this. There's, in all the programs, hundreds of programs, Jump for Jesus. Dozens and dozens of states, different countries, 50 years, all the activity. What are we to seek above all things?
His kingdom.
What does Proverbs say to seek above all things? What? What? Wisdom. Wisdom. She's more to be sought after than gold. Yea, any precious thing that you can think of. Now I want you to get hold of this. I've lived my life. We're all here because of Jump for Jesus. But Jump for Jesus is gone. But I'm giving more. Now that Jump for Jesus is gone, I'm giving more. I've given more since we laid it down, and I will give more than I ever gave in 50 years of programs. Because, and the same way with Cece, Cece and I have lived our love story. We've lived it in front of you. The love story is not over, but the joining and the activity of it has already happened. What we have to give, what she has to give, what I have to give, is so much more precious than all the programs combined, is the wisdom of the life I've lived.
Yeah.
The wisdom of the life she's lived, which we're all so familiar with her story. But who can really imagine? I know Sydney can't. She can't imagine. Esther can't. Kay can't. Can't imagine what being married to a serial murderer and rapist could have ever been like. On the run with 4 kids, hiding out in fear of your life, turning him in to the FBI, working it out so that he'd get apprehended in his parents' house. We can't really figure that out, what that's like. But the wisdom in that and from that is a path to your life, if you can hear it.
I just want to say something too, because if it hadn't unfolded in the leading of the Spirit, there would be no Sydney, there would be no Jake, there wouldn't be any Luke or Noah. You guys are the
That's
fruit
right.
of the leading of the Spirit, really.
That's
You
right.
wouldn't have met Russ and Jeannie, none of it.
That's right.
And if she survived that, Dan would have survived. but he never would have married Jade. And none of you would be here. Because I wouldn't be here. But her Heavenly Father knew what she needed and who she needed. But the wisdom in that. Now, so all of you, when you get your eyes off of what you're not getting, what people don't acknowledge you for, where you feel slighted, when you get your eyes into service, when you really are content
Yeah.
being a table waiter in this ministry to the world, stop worrying about your own little monthly deal, your own little apartment. My God, where will I put that? What'll I do with that? When we really get our eyes on being a servant, then you have pearls of wisdom to pass on. Wisdom is the principal thing, which is, by the way, a spirit.
Yeah.
And by the way, is only released in a culture of true service. Because if you're not serving, you don't give wisdom, you give commands.
So.
Wait. Go
I
ahead.
think one of the greatest movies that really talks about what you're talking about is The Fourth Blind
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, that movie,
Yeah.
you know, it shows both sides. It shows the servant who's serving because he has to, and it shows the guy who's giving who he is out of his heart, and how Jesus responded.
And I want to say something about that. Because we've always joked that Artemis, the reluctant servant, we always joke that that's Joseph. Because Joseph has always been the reluctant servant. And he's dying in the Philippines, and he's dying a miserable death. He's angry, he's hateful, he's cussing, he's accusing, because he's not forgiven. I've said this before, and for all of you older saints, this is good to listen. You can manage your demons up to a certain point in your life. But as you get weaker and older, you're not going to be able to manage your demons. Your demons will manage you. Demonic outbursts from time to time is an indicator that they still live with you. Did you get that?
Yes.
Demonic outbreak from time to time shows you that your demons still live with you. They may not be in you, but they still live with you. Which shows you that you're able yet to manage them when you can. But there's a day coming when you won't be able to manage them. And they will usher you into a dark place in eternity that you do not want to go. And Joseph is there. Barring some kind of miracle, be honest with you, I don't have a lot of faith. Because I'm looking at somebody who's now dying how he's lived secretly in his heart his whole life. It's a wake-up call.
I want to say
So your attitudes and your little flare-ups and your little, oh, I'm sorry, I soiled myself, all of that, you can apologize, and it's good that you do. But the deeper truth is, those enemies still live with you. Because you haven't given them notice the best thing you can do is become a servant. No servants end up in hell. No servants endure the displeasure of their master. The true servant is exalted. Whoever wants to be great, let him be the servant of all. Jesus, he told us what the key was, but it was so simple and so direct, we didn't get it. When I went to work for Evel Knievel, I didn't go to work in the strength of my body. I went to work because in my heart, I wanted to serve his purpose, was to give people faith to live life to the fullest. I saw the vision, and I agreed with it, and I served his vision. All the other stuff came with it. But I didn't serve him, I didn't work for him for any of the obvious reasons. It's because something in my heart clicked with his heart's message to help the common man overcome the fear of death, overcome the fear of stepping out, to help the common man step up, walk in faith, increase your faith. You can overcome in this life. That was his message. And I say that's why God exalted him. He was the ambassador of faith for his day. Yeah, he was a big sinner, all that stuff, but nobody on earth was publicized in faith like Evel Knievel. So, something.
You know what came to me about Joseph, because I'm the one that's been interacting with these people, and both of them said he's imparted evil. He's imparted his evil spirit. And you know, Gene told a man one time, you can do your little porn thing in your bedroom, but it's going to be shouted from the housetop, and it's going to seep out under the door. And you know, again, back to evil impartation, because it's all going to come out one day.
Right.
There's nothing hidden that's not going to be revealed. So we're doing our little video thing, and I'm just full of my story, right? 5 hours long, right? And Dan's trying to direct me. It was hysterical. And I have so much swimming in my head, and he's trying to say, Mom, just say this line. And he's finally gets to the place where he starts crying. He starts crying. And he's saying to me, Mom.
Because he's remembering how it was.
Not that maybe he even remembers, but he starts crying. And he starts talking about the little boy saying, Mommy, does Daddy have to eat breakfast in a cage? And his spirit actually jumped on me.
Yeah.
It was
boy, you could feel it.
Impartation.
It was powerful.
Dan's spirit jumped on me. Did you get that impartation? And I was able to do a little better.
Okay, let me finish. Just so everybody knows, a lot of Joseph's stuff has not been broadcast because we're doing our best to cover our brother's sin as long as he's open with it. Last time Joseph was here, Joe took him down the road. I mean, we talked about it, and Joe did it. Joe did with Joseph what Joe did with Bob. He left no stone unturned. Took him back to Tonga with his problems with kids in Tonga. And on Vavau, all that stuff. And Joseph couldn't deny it. But that's where it stopped. There was no real spirit of openness. And both of us knew when he went back, that was going to be it. It was still up to him to change. It was up to him to just be a servant. And now is the conflict, because Joseph was a God-called servant.
Yeah.
And when he walked in his calling, there was nobody better. You got to be content to walk in your calling. Anyway, I think that's about all I have. Anybody else?
I just want to say that, you know, when Jerry was here, I saw Joe serving him, helping him, you know, get him a bottle of water, and I just was very impressed that he was serving. Joe was serving, and I think when he said he
Well,
had
that's who
no,
Joe is.
and he had no pain, and he was serving. He was serving.
You
Anybody
know,
else?
in the beginning of the meeting, you said that there is no end even of learning of our own self. And today when Dan was filming me, he, you know, he'd stop us and he'd direct us and he'd say, okay, you know, talk about this again and add this to it, because I've heard the story before and you left this out. So he said, go back to the part where you would pull over on the side of the road and cry and tell us why you did that. And I said, I don't know why I did it. And he goes, well, what thoughts did you have? I said, there were no thoughts. I just couldn't help myself. And so.
You can't ask a woman why she cries.
But here's the deal, Giving my own testimony,
3 words or less.
giving my own testimony imparted wisdom to me.
Yeah.
And so we go back and we film it again, and as I'm talking through it, again, not about the crying part, but about the suicide, I realized that, okay, and you've all heard the part where, you know, I had 2 kids that I didn't know what to do with, had a husband I didn't want, had a man I did want, and I became suicidal. I realized as I'm sharing it today, even getting deeper wisdom of my own soul, was that I became suicidal. The thing that made me the most suicidal was not the things I've always shared, but the fact that the Lord was breaking that crusty exterior, and it was my last hope of keeping myself safe.
Yeah.
And so I became suicidal because what's left? If I can't protect myself and I can't be crusty because I'm crying all the time, what's left? And I realized just today that I got more of my own testimony just sharing my testimony.
That's how it works.
There's no end to it.
How do you grow?
Yeah, you share.
By giving.
Yes.
Will you?
I don't have anything to share, I'll talk to everybody when we're done.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just when you're talking about being a servant, that was what came out of me when I was baptized. I didn't think about saying it before I went under. You just said, you know, just say, I want to be a woman of God. And I said, I want to be a woman of God and I want to be a servant. And it just came out of me, you know, because I knew at 13 I wasn't a servant.
Because you were raised. What do you think the gift of helps is?
Service.
Service. You're raised in a house of service.
Yeah.
Your dad, your mom, your brother.
Yep.
Your service, your servants. And you married a chief servant.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that it's, you know, we talk about it and, you know, it's, obviously I wanted to be married, wanted to have kids when I was that age, you know, and that is the thing that kept me from wanting. And like what you're saying, when you're content,
Yep.
and I had to ask for it, I had to ask the Lord to help me, and I would have to choose. I'm going to be content now, and I'm going to serve. I'm going to watch these kids now.
Well,
I'm going to do this at it, and
yeah,
but that's what got me out of being when I was.
that's
selfish,
why I love,
you know?
it'll get you out of everything.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
just
said
want to
the
respond to
formula-
that because it's very paramount in my
in just my walk.
The formula for getting out of a tailspin is to let go
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and
Yeah.
kick opposite rudder.
Mm-hmm.
That's the formula.
Yeah.
In life, it's when you're in a tailspin,
Yeah.
do opposite of what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
and let go, which means start serving.
Yeah. And I
It
just wanted
pulls
to
you out every
respond to
time.
that because that's what you're saying, and that's
That's-
what would help me, so.
That's why one of the greatest movies is Remains of the Day.
Yeah,
A lot of people don't get that.
yeah,
They think he's selfish, they think all of this, because he won't spend time with this woman, he won't give himself to her. That's not who he is.
No.
He's a servant. And his whole life revolved around making sure the house and the people had what they needed. So, wait, Joe, were you gonna say something? Joe? Were you gonna say?
I was thinking about this scripture in Philippians. It has to do with being a servant from the heart. It says, only let your lifestyle be as it becomes of the gospel of Christ, that whether I come and see you or else be absent, that I might hear your affairs, that you stand fast in one spirit, with one mind, I'd say one heart.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, anytime you read mind,
yeah, serving
Mind-
the Lord.
well, anytime you read mind, where the Greeks put mind,
Yeah,
it means spirit.
yeah.
You can transpose mind anywhere it's written in the New Testament with spirit.
Yeah.
Where in Philippians is that?
Anyway,
Oh, so when you think of the scripture that says greater love has no man than he laid down his life for his friend, what if it's the greater love we get? Jesus said, love is fulfilled. Our joy is fulfilled in loving and serving our brother.
well, it is.
And that's what happened with my kids. When I decided to stop being a wanton, needy, it's the end of the world, and lay down my life for my children, and
Well, that's
stop
the
being terrified of what I got,
That's the
you know,
reward.
love came
The
my
reward
way.
of service
Joy.
is self-fulfillment. What?
So, just a note on Jerry, I called him Wednesday morning because I wanted to say goodbye to him. And, I said, so Jerry, I said, when are you leaving? He goes, I'm already in Denver, baby. And he's already been in Denver. And he said, if you get a chance, he said, thank everybody for the gift. He said, I didn't know how I was gonna pay my rent this month. And, he said, I'm just blown away by the love.
The Lord gave me the principle for everybody here. Because without really asking anybody, we just made it available. Over $2,500 came for Jerry.
Wow. Yeah.
And he gave me 2 Corinthians 9:1. And he gave me the word superfluous. It's not superfluous for me to say. It's not necessary for me to say how greatly, I want to put it in my own words, how proud of you I am for your freedom in giving and supporting the saints of God. And that's what I thought of everybody here. You all are not only servants, you're givers. I mean, what a great gift for him. And he didn't ask for nothing. He didn't ask. He was needy, but he didn't ask. So, it was really, I really felt greatly blessed by your gift for Jerry. And what did you?
Well, something happened a few weeks ago. This printer salesman comes into our office, and when I first met him, so this is a couple weeks ago, but when I first saw him, I was like, I really like this guy. You know, and when I didn't realize it's because he was me, like 20 years ago. You know, I mean, it's like a spinning image of exactly ambitious, like wants to conquer the world, whatever. And he was so great. Because that morning I was like, Jesus, I just pray that I could give myself to somebody today. And he comes into my office, and I just felt to ask him, so, you know, kind of like how he got into doing what he does or whatever. And then he starts talking about wanting to get into, like, do real estate investing. Now, here's the thing. So I asked him, I go, why? Well, because I want to get out of the rat race. Why? You know, well, I have friends that are trying to, you know, help me, you know, because I want to be wealthy. And he starts going through this thing, and I'm, why? You know, and so I kept asking the question why, and he goes, I don't know why. Through the process of it, it was really great because he starts asking me, like, and I just start sharing from my heart about what I've been seeing recently, of just how I've missed it all these years, and how I thought that was cancer. And it was great because I said, you know, the greatest thing I've seen over all these years, and I said I'm just getting this revelation recently, is living my life to serve others and for the greater purpose. And I said, really? And I got a revelation as I'm talking to him. I said, trying to chase after all this stuff, that's the rat race.
Yeah.
You know, I never realized it until I'm sitting there talking to him. I said, somebody asked me once, I said, you know, how much is enough? I said, it's never enough. Because once you get 2 million, then you're going to want 5, and then 10, and then 20. I said, it's never enough. And said, that's where the rat race begins. And as I'm sharing with him, the Lord has just opened my eyes to see a deeper revelation of really how my thought process has been my entire life. And it was great because as I'm sharing, I said, the whole reason I wanted to do it at first was because I got my 10-year reunion come up. I want to prove to everybody that I was able to be somebody. And it's like his jaw dropped because it's exactly how he was thinking. And everything I was sharing was exactly where he was at. And he was just like, I've never had anybody share this like this before. And he goes, please, like, keep going. Like, this is great. And I just had a great time. But as he keeps asking me questions, just sharing what Jesus has done for me and helping me see the purpose of living for other people. And I realized there's still, you know, scratching the surface of things.
Well, whatever, that's good.
But it was.
But did you buy the printer?
That's good.
I had already
Okay,
bought
Dan,
the printer before. Well, I'll say this real quick. Do you want to become Jesus' friend? How do you become Jesus' friend? Anybody know?
Stop being poker with him.
No. He said, I previously called you servants, and now I call you friends.
Wow.
Because a friend knows the will of his master.
I didn't catch that.
Next he said, because a friend knows the will of his master.
Yeah.
That's not why.
But they were servants first. I'm saying there's an order to becoming the friend.
Yeah.
And it's starting as a servant.
Yeah.
You don't need to know the will of your master. Other than the will of your master is to serve and love, be in faith, pray, exercise your gifts, walk in faith, make judgments as a servant. As a table waiter, you help people order. Well, I think I'll have the clams. You don't want the clams.
That literally happened to Carmi and I at the restaurant the other night.
Yeah.
So
Well, good waiter will direct you.
But we went into this restaurant and they sit us in this booth and you sunk down to where the table's right here. And I'm like, and so I said, Mommy, we can't sit here. And she goes, this is terrible. So the waitress comes over and she goes, we want to move to a table. I mean, we can't even reach the food. So she moves us to the table and this elderly couple comes in. I mean, elderly, he's got a cane and he's walking. They're gonna go sit him where Carmi and I sat, and we both turned around and goes, "Don't sit there! Don't put him there! They'll never get up out of the table." And I think the guy who seated him was a little offended, but truly, her and I were like, "Don't do it! Don't do it!" They sat him somewhere else.
Wrap it up.
Okay, I think we're good, we can accept that, we'll, yeah, next button. Good night, everybody.